Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. There's a story buried deep in the old soil of South Carolina, a secret whispered among broken columns and collapsed verandas, a secret that once shook a powerful household to its core. They say that behind the whitewashed walls of a place called Oak Grove Plantation, a woman of status, refinement, and flawless reputation found herself gripped by an obsession that defied everything the world around her believed to be decent. Her desire wasn't for wealth or freedom or even affection. It was for a man she was never meant to touch. The year was 1842. The air in Charleston was heavy with heat and hypocrisy, men preaching honor while profiting from chains. Oak Grove stood like a monument to this contradiction, graceful from afar, rotten within. Jonathan Whitmore, its master, was a man who valued image above all else. His manners were polished, his smile calculated, his slaves meticulously organized into ranks of servitude. His wife, Eliza, was expected to be the ornamental reflection of his wealth, quiet, graceful, untouched by the grime of the world. But Eliza's life was suffocating. The days stretched endlessly between the ticking of the parlor clock and the shuffling feet of the servants. Behind her calm gaze, something restless was growing. Then came the arrival of a new house slave, a man named Isaac. He was young, in his early 20s, tall, and unlike any she had seen before. There was a quiet dignity in him, a kind of intelligence that seemed out of place in a world built to erase it. When he worked, his movements were deliberate, graceful, even poetic, polishing the silver, restoring books in the library, his eyes always focused, never idle. Eliza noticed, though she tried not to. Her first real look lasted only a second too long, but that second was enough to wake something inside her that had long been buried beneath routine and repression. At first, she convinced herself it was appreciation for his precision, his quiet nature, the calm he brought to the house. But admiration has a way of transforming, silently, into fascination. And fascination, left unchecked, grows teeth. Days turned to weeks, and Eliza found reasons to be near him. She would linger by the doorway while he worked in the library, pretending to read as her eyes followed his every movement. She began asking him small questions about the arrangement of books, the polish he used on the brass fixtures, anything that would make him speak. His voice, soft but steady, seemed to echo through her long, empty days. Soon she began to imagine that the air itself changed when he entered the room, heavier, charged with something she couldn't name but could feel. Isaac, of course, understood the danger. He kept his eyes down, his words measured, his distance respectful. But the walls of Oak Grove had ears, and even silence can speak volumes. The other servants noticed the way she lingered near him, the way her gloved fingers brushed against the edge of the furniture he had just polished, as though trying to feel the warmth of his hands through the wood. And late at night, when the candles were out and the plantation was asleep, Eliza would lie awake and think of him not as a servant, not as property, but as something forbidden and entirely human. What began as glances soon became gestures, a momentary touch as he handed her a book, a hand that lingered a second too long when passing a cup of tea. Every touch left a mark on her soul, a trace she couldn't wash away. For the first time in years she felt alive, and that feeling, once tasted, becomes impossible to let go. Yet in the South of the 1840s, there was no greater sin than the one she was stepping toward. To even imagine desire across the color line was blasphemy. To act on it was ruin. But love, lust, and power don't obey rules. They burn through them, and Eliza Whitmore, the perfect wife of Oak Grove, was about to set her whole world on fire. Because the man she couldn't stop touching was one she could never, ever have. The months that followed marked the beginning of Eliza's undoing. It began with something as simple as a touch on the shoulder, accidental, innocent, but electric. She felt it like a spark under her skin. For Isaac, it was another reminder that his body was not his own. Every gesture he made, every breath he took inside that house, had to be measured, calculated, safe. Yet, with every day that passed, Eliza grew bolder. What was once a passing touch became routine, an excuse to guide his hand, to fix his collar, to brush away a speck of dust that wasn't there. The house servants began to notice. They exchanged looks when she entered a room, when she called Isaac by name instead of title. They had seen such things before, white men taking liberties with enslaved women, but a mistress's obsession with her slave was a sin beyond comprehension. It defied every law, every hierarchy, every expectation that bound Southern life together, and yet no one dared to speak. Eliza began to invent tasks for him, tending her flowers, cleaning her piano, organizing her letters. Jonathan Whitmore, her husband, was often away on business, leaving Eliza to her loneliness and Isaac to her mercy. Alone together, they spoke little, but silence can be intimate. She watched him move, his body carved by labor, his voice calm even when she pressed too close. And, though he said nothing, Isaac understood her need, not just physical, but something deeper. She wanted to be seen, not as a wife or a decoration, but as a woman still capable of stirring desire. Yet the price of that longing was steep. For Isaac, every gesture of kindness could be mistaken for rebellion. Every look could be turned into evidence of defiance. And for Eliza, every touch brought her closer to ruin. Still, she couldn't stop. Something primal had awakened, something the rigid society around her had starved into madness. At night, she dreamt of him, not the way society would record or remember him, but the way he was when no one was watching, thinking, reading, alive. By day, she masked her obsession with polite smiles, hosting tea with other planters' wives, who admired her composure and commented on her radiant mood. They could never have imagined that the radiance came from sin. In her private diary, found years later in the ruins of the estate, Eliza wrote one line that has since haunted historians. Asterisk, he is the only person who looks at me as if I exist. Asterisk, it was no longer curiosity. It was dependence, and like all forbidden things, it was destined to be discovered. By the spring of 1844, Oak Grove no longer felt like a home, it felt like a trap filled with watching eyes. Rumors began to circulate among the staff. The housemaid, Clara, noticed that Eliza's perfume lingered longer in the library than anywhere else. The butler claimed he saw Isaac leaving the drawing room long after dark. In a world where gossip could kill faster than disease, these whispers carried danger like venom. But even as talk spread, Eliza seemed beyond fear. She moved through the halls with strange calmness, as though daring the walls themselves to betray her. Jonathan Whitmore, preoccupied with debts and politics, remained blind to the growing tension in his home. He noticed Eliza's mood swings, the flushed cheeks, the distracted gaze, but assumed it to be illness or perhaps boredom. He had no reason to suspect that the source of his wife's restlessness was a man he believed to own. One evening, Eliza found Isaac alone in the parlor, tuning the old piano. The candlelight painted his face in gold, and something inside her snapped. She walked closer, pretending to inspect the instrument, then reached out and touched his hand. He froze, the room holding its breath. For a moment the plantation disappeared, no master, no slave, no law, just two people bound by a moment that should never have existed. When she finally stepped back, Isaac's eyes met hers. No words were spoken, but the silence between them carried everything they both feared to admit: desire, shame, danger. The next morning, Eliza's maid found her staring out the window, a faint smile on her lips and a trembling hand clutching her teacup. When asked what she was thinking, she whispered, "Nothing I can speak aloud." But others did speak. Rumors reached neighboring estates. Some laughed, others gasped, others quietly took note. That Whitmore woman's losing her mind, they said. She's bewitched by one of her own slaves. The story slithered through Charleston like smoke, staining the Whitmore name. Still, Jonathan dismissed it all as jealousy. Eliza wrote in her diary again, asterisk, "They can take away everything I own, but not what I feel when I touch him." Asterisk, those words would later be found burned into the edge of a page, the ink charred, as if someone, maybe Jonathan, had tried to destroy it. But even fire could not erase obsession. Summer brought more than heat to Oak Grove, it brought reckoning. Jonathan's younger brother, Charles Whitmore, came to stay for a few weeks, hoping to help settle the family's growing debts. Charles was observant, quick-tongued, and unkind. Within days he noticed what Jonathan refused to see: the lingering looks, the awkward silences, the strange tension that seemed to haunt every room Isaac entered. One afternoon, as thunder rolled across the sky, Charles walked into the drawing room unannounced. There he saw Eliza's hand resting gently on Isaac's arm as she leaned over the piano bench. The gesture was fleeting, innocent by appearance, but Charles knew what he saw. And it was enough. That evening he confronted his brother. "You've been made a fool," he said. Jonathan laughed it off at first, but Charles's words dug deep. For the first time, Jonathan began to watch to truly see. And what he saw terrified him: his wife's laughter when Isaac entered the room, her sudden anger when the young man was sent away on errands, her trembling voice when his name was mentioned. Within a week, Jonathan ordered Isaac transferred to the fields far from the house, far from Eliza. The punishment was quiet but brutal. From fine linens and candlelight to sweat and mud, Isaac's descent was meant to remind him of his place. Eliza begged Jonathan to reconsider, claiming Isaac's skill was wasted outdoors. Jonathan's response was sharp and final: "Better wasted than damned." But obsession does not surrender to distance. Eliza began sneaking food and letters to Isaac through trusted servants. One note survived, hidden in the lining of an old Bible, asterisk, "They can chain your body, but they cannot chain what I feel." Asterisk for Isaac, those words were both comfort and curse. Each letter tied him closer to a woman whose love could destroy them both. And for Eliza, each day without him deepened the void, until even the sound of the fields at dusk seemed like his name carried on the wind. The cracks in Oak Grove's perfection were widening, and through them ruin was beginning to seep. The end began quietly. In the fall of 1846, a field hand reported seeing Eliza near the slave quarters at dusk. She claimed to be delivering medicine for an injured worker, but her visits became frequent, too frequent. One night a storm broke across the plantation, and in its chaos Jonathan went searching for his wife. He found her near the stables, her white dress soaked through with rain, her trembling hands clutching a lantern. And Isaac standing beside her. There are no records of what was said that night, but neighbors reported hearing shouts, a scream, and the sound of something breaking. By dawn, Isaac was gone, sold, according to Jonathan, to a trader bound for Louisiana. Eliza locked herself in her room for days, refusing to eat or speak. When she finally emerged, her eyes were hollow, her skin pale as linen. Jonathan told the community that his wife was ill, a nervous condition brought on by the weather. But the truth was far darker. The diary entries stopped after that month, ending with a single line, asterisk, "He is gone, and so am I." Asterisk rumors filled the void. Some claimed Eliza had been confined to an asylum. Others said she wasted away inside the mansion, haunted by guilt. What we know for certain is that Oak Grove's prosperity ended soon after. The fields grew wild, debts consumed the estate, and the Whitmore name was quietly erased from Charleston society. Years later, when the house was finally abandoned, A servant returning to collect belongings found a small piece of fabric hidden inside Eliza's piano bench, a man's handkerchief, embroidered with the initials I. W. The stain on it was rusted brown like old blood. After Eliza's disappearance, Oak Grove became a ghost of itself. Jonathan died in 1851, alone and despised, his fortune gone, his legacy rotted. Neighbors avoided the property, saying they could still hear piano music at dusk, faint, sorrowful notes carried on the humid air. Some claimed they saw a woman's shadow wandering the verandas, her hand outstretched as if searching for someone she could never find. Isaac's fate was thought to be sealed, another lost soul swallowed by the deep south. But decades later, a curious discovery emerged. In 1873, a Union soldier helping to catalogue freedmen's records in Louisiana found a name, Isaac Whitmore, self-chosen surname, formerly enslaved, literate, working as a carpenter. Next to his entry, a note, keeps a white woman's handkerchief, says it belonged to his sin. He never married. He never returned east. Those who knew him described him as quiet, melancholy, prone to playing the piano in the evenings. When he died in 1890, that same handkerchief was found folded in his coat pocket, its edges frayed, but the initials still visible. Historians now debate what bound them together: love, control, madness, or desperation. But perhaps it was all of those at once. For Eliza, Isaac was rebellion against a life that suffocated her. For Isaac, she was both captor and captive, a woman who could touch but never free him. Their bond was born of oppression, yet it defied it, twisting into something that destroyed them both. Even today, the story divides scholars. Some call Eliza a victim of her own repressed world. Others call her a predator cloaked in privilege. Isaac's silence, preserved only through scattered records, remains the most haunting testimony of all. Today, Oak Grove stands in ruins, a skeleton of its former self. Nature has reclaimed what pride once possessed. Ivy climbs the broken chimneys, the wind whistles through shattered glass. Locals say if you walk near the ruins at night, you'll hear faint piano notes, like a melody half remembered. Some say it's Eliza, forever playing for the man she couldn't forget. Others say it's Isaac, reminding the world that even in silence, the enslaved had voices that refused to die. Archaeologists once uncovered fragments, their bits of china, a rusted chain, a burned page from a diary that read only, I touched him and I became someone else. That line, now kept in the Charleston Historical Society, captures the entire tragedy not just of Eliza and Isaac, but of a world built on ownership, where humanity itself became forbidden. The story of Oak Grove is not a romance. It is a wound the kind history tries to cauterize with time, but never truly heals. It reminds us that power and desire can twist into something indistinguishable from madness. That beneath the columns and chandeliers of the antebellum South, there were stories like this one too shameful to record, too human to forget. And perhaps that is why the legend endures, because in that ruined house under the heavy southern air, one woman reached for what she was told she could not have, and lost everything for it. Her name was Eliza Whitmore. His name was Isaac, and theirs was the touch that history tried to erase but never could.